All right, well, let's continue the conversation because you talked about divestments.
Right. So protesters at Columbia University, as Isabella was just telling us, they're demanding their schools cut the financial ties to Israel. Divestment. They're asking schools to divest from businesses they say are actively profiting from Israel's war in Gaza. But as Kira was asking, what does that exactly mean? And why are schools investing like this in the first place? Is there a problem there?
Right. Our Elizabeth Schulze is here to break that all down for us. Elizabeth, you and I were talking early today. We've been talking about this issue. We need you to sort of, explain to us exactly what the protesters are demanding and how the schools would actually make the changes if they even wanted to.
Right. Okay. So we've been digging into this idea of divestment, that these universities would cut their financial ties. When you look at Columbia specifically, and I think this is helpful because it's a continuation of the conversation you guys were just having, there are three big tech companies specifically that the protesters are singling out. They're looking at Alphabet, which is the parent company of Google. They're looking at Amazon, and they're looking at Microsoft. The argument they say is that those companies provide digital infrastructure. So in the case of Amazon and Amazon and Alphabet, that is cloud infrastructure in a project called Project Nimbus that basically gives cloud services to Israel's government and the Israeli army and the Israeli military. So they're not giving weapons, but they are providing that digital infrastructure. We did actually ask Google about this, guys. We got a statement back a couple minutes ago from Google, and they confirmed that they do provide those cloud services to Israel. But they made a point of telling us that this work they do is not highly sensitive. It's not classified. The military workloads are not relevant to weapons or intelligence services. So the point is, these businesses do have ties to Israel. And the reason why Columbia is invested in them is because the stock in those companies make them a lot of money. If you look at Google stock, it's up more than 20% this year, and that has helped boost Columbia's endowment. Their endowment is now almost $14 billion. That number is up 8% in the past decade. So the university wants to have holdings in these companies because it makes their pot of money grow. So far, we have not seen the university back down. We asked them, we reached out to them. They're still holding onto those companies for now, and they say that this is a way that they can continue to grow those investments while, potentially still having those ties, at least indirectly, with Israel too.
Right. I do wonder if the fiduciary duty of that company and certainly the board of trustees to grow the endowment comes in there. But let me ask you about what's the likelihood that Columbia will actually start divesting from those specific companies? And I've also seen calls for them to get out of index funds, these massive funds which are constantly churning the stocks to get the best return. Does that make sense?
Exactly. And Terry, there is some precedent for this. And it's important to know there's basically a fund that manages all of these investments. But then that fund invests in other funds. So index funds, ETFs. There are a lot of people involved in this decision making, but it is not unprecedented to make that decision to cut ties altogether. And as we were reporting this out this afternoon, we saw the example of Russia. Remember, 2 years ago, when Russia invaded Ukraine, a lot of companies, and universities included, cut ties with Russia. And explicitly on the page of this Trust for Columbia's Investments, they say they have done due diligence, they've checked with all of the funds that they are invested in, and no business that they are invested in has ties with Russia. So there is a way to do this. It's been done in the past. And even if you go further back in history, the way that this started was back in the 1980s when universities, including Columbia, basically said that they were not going to invest in businesses that did business with South Africa during apartheid. That was an incredibly effective way for the universities to divest of those companies that had those relationships. We'll see this happening again. So this is not totally without historical precedent either, guys.
There we go.
Yeah.
Back to back. That was good television. Smart and informative television. Elizabeth Schulze, thank you so much.
Welcome.